Hello and welcome to episode 310 of Anywhere But Here. I'm Tom and I'm here alone again because this is a spoilercast that I recorded alone a few months ago. But before we get there, you can find us at abhpod.com where, if you scroll down a bit, there is an Amazon banner. It's the January sales, so why not do your shopping as you would usually do over at amazon.co.uk, and we get 5% of the total spend that you make in your basket at the end. You don't pay anymore, we just take a little bit more of Amazon's profits, and that helps us keep our website up and running on the internet. If you don't want to use Amazon, and maybe, that's a justified choice, you can become a patron. If you go over to patreon.com/abhpod, you can become a patron over there for as little as 1 unit of your currency. Whether that's pounds, dollars, euros, whatever it is. And you can you sign up and you get access to loads of stuff. There are hundreds of episodes in there. You get these spoiler casts on the day that they are released, right after I or Ant or both of us has seen the movie. We post them straight away so that you get them while it's still current rather than months down the line when the DVD comes out, as is the case right now. You also get access to exclusive spoilercasts. No, you get access to exclusive after the podcasts, which are just for patrons, which will never be on the main feed. You also, the best of all, you get the episodes without this horrendously tortured introduction to the episode, telling you what you're about to hear and why you should become a patron. It's worth it just for that. £1 a month. That's all it is. You can find us on Twitter at ABHPod, you can find us on Facebook.com/ABHPod, or you can find us over on YouTube.com/ABHPodcast, or you can get in touch with us via email at abhpod@gmail.com. As stated, this is a spoiler cast for the latest James Bond movie, No Time to Die. So from the very start and all throughout, there will be major plot spoilers, character arcs, all that kind of thing, all the action, every beat of the movie that I could remember at the time. If you haven't seen the film, you might want to go and see the film first. If you don't really want to see the film, you can either skip this episode entirely or go ahead and listen to it. Maybe I'll change your mind, who knows. But without further ado, enjoy. Hello patrons, it's me, Tom. I'm on my own to do a spoiler cast this time round. This one is going to be on the 25th James Bond film, No Time to Die, which as of recording is still in cinemas. So far has grossed $460 million worldwide, meaning that it's the 6th highest grossing film of 2021 as of the 24th of October. I went to see this on the day of its release. I'm just going to check exactly when that was on my Letterboxd. I am on Letterboxd if you want to come and find me on there. I don't really say much on there, but hey. So it was the 30th of September. So it's been out almost a month. And in this month, I've been quite busy. Ant and I have been ships in the night. He's still not comfortable going back to the cinema, so I'm going to get on and give you guys some patron content. Now, obviously, this has been a long time coming. This was supposed to have been released back in 2020, and it was pushed back all the way to this year. It's probably a good thing in the end. I think people were a little bit disappointed that it was pushed back that far, mainly because they thought that James Bond was going to be the film to save cinema in Britain. However, as we know, Tenet tried and failed at that. There were further lockdowns. It would have been massively affected, I think. And obviously this is one of the biggest franchises in the world, one of the longest running franchises in the world, if not the longest running franchise in the world in film. So it can't be a failure. It's good that that it was pushed back. It's good that we all get to go and see it in the cinema, which is where these films are supposed to be seen, really. And what's amazing on this film in particular is that the fact that it stayed in a can for well over a year after editing was finished on this film, that the big spoilers were kept under wraps. And I haven't even seen much in the way of spoiling on the internet in general, which I think has been great. So again, what I will say, this is a spoiler cast. There will be spoilers. If you've not seen the film, you really need to do yourself a favour and go and see it. If you can still catch it in the cinema when this comes out, which on the Patreon feed, it will still be in cinemas, you need to go and see it in the cinema. If it's on the main feed, we usually put these spoiler casts out when the film comes out on Blu-ray and DVD. Get yourself a copy, buy a massive TV and a surround sound system, and let your neighbours know exactly what you're watching by cranking it up really loud. Yeah. I think that might kind of colour how I feel about the film. Perhaps you've already got a kind of taste of what I feel about it. But we'll get into that. I mean, you know, most of the stuff that you see in the trailer, for example, the big kind of Bond jumping off the viaduct, grabbing onto the electric cable, the motorbike jump, the car, the beautiful car, spinning round with the guns coming out of the headlight sockets. That's all within the first few scenes. It's within the first act. That's basically the pre-title sequence. Actually, no, that's not true. There is another pre-title sequence. This is the first bit after the title sequence. So before the film starts, you've got another bit that's in the trailer. Basically, everything that's in the trailer generally happens in the first 20 minutes of the film. So yes, you're in a kind of a snowy, desolate area. There's a house in the middle of nowhere, and there's a man walking through, all dressed in white, with a white kind of doll's head mask on, and that's kind of scary. And basically, this guy, it's like a home invasion movie, and it reminded me a little bit of The Strangers, is it? That horror film? I'm not up on my horror, as many of you will know. But where like a group of people break into a house all wearing masks, and it's scary and freaky. Don't like it. But yeah, this bit at the very beginning here plays like a home invasion movie. There's a little girl in the house with her mother who's an alcoholic, because the father has left and hasn't come back. There's something going on there. So mum's kind of passed out on the sofa. The girl's realizes that there's a guy waiting outside, looking in through the window, tries to wake her mother, can't wake her up. The man in the mask comes in, breaks into the house, and shoots the mother, leaving the little girl alone. But the little girl has found her dad's secret stashed away pistol, and she managed to unload a couple of slugs into the guy who's broken into the home. Then he falls down some stairs. She goes down the stairs to make sure he's dead. He manages to come back to life even after appearing to be dead, and then chases her outside. She flees onto a frozen lake, and, you know, obviously, the lake begins to crack. She falls through the ice, into the lake, and then it looks like the guy in the mask is trying, because the mask by this point, because he's fallen down the stairs, it's broken away, so you can see his jaw. You know that this is Rami Malek's character. We don't know who he is yet or what he's doing, but he fires into the ice, and it looks like he's trying to kill her, but actually he saves her. And then the credits. It turns out that what's happening. Well, we don't know what's happening there. That comes later. So then we get the title sequence with the Billie Eilish song, of course. Brilliant title sequences as always. Then we flash forward to the present. I don't know whether we had a thing saying that was in the past. I think maybe there was something that said, whatever year it was. Then we come back to the present, and Bond and Madeline, Leia Sedu's character, are driving through some Italian countryside to a small village where they do this strange festival of burning pieces of paper with their wishes in it. There's still a bit of, after they kind of walked off into the sunset at the end of Spectre, there's still a little bit of kind of tension between them. There's still that kind of like, is she really telling him everything about her past and all this kind of stuff? He is there to say goodbye to Vesper Lind, who died in the first movie, Casino Royale. She's buried there. He goes up to her tomb in the morning, and a bomb goes off. There's a little card with the Spectre logo on it, and a bomb goes off. Despite the fact it's point blank and the tomb shatters into a million pieces, he's all right. He's got a bit of ringing in his ears, but he's fine. Runs back into town to try and basically catch Madeleine, because he believes that she's got something to do with it. And is chased by a couple of cars and a guy on a motorbike. He brilliantly dispatches with the guy from the motorbike, who has a crazy eye. It's got a fake eye, and he pulls out the fake eye and it rolls away. That'll come back into play later on. And then you see all the kind of, all the big kind of car set pieces. He gets back to the hotel where he'd left Madeline that morning, and essentially, bullies her back into the Aston Martin and is like, what the fuck? You're clearly in on this. How else would they have found me if it weren't for you? She seems not to know at all. They go on a pretty prolonged car chase, which ends in that little piazza where they're surrounded by cars. So Bond uses all the gadgets at his disposal in the DB5 and, deploys the machine guns everyone, then smoke screens, and then manages to escape through the smoke. Madeline tries to convince him that it wasn't her, and so he decides to let her live effectively, but they can never see each other again. So he packs her on a train, and that's that. And perhaps that's where the titles come in. I can't quite remember. It's one of those two places. Anyway. So then we cut 5 years later on. And some people in tactical suits are crawling down the Shard to break into a science lab where they're making some sort of biological weapon, perhaps. We're not quite sure. It's not clear, but the people sat down, one of whom is comedian Hugh Dennis, who people might recognise from TV shows such as News of the World. News of the World? Is that the one? No. Mock the Week, that's the one. It's the Jam song News of the World playing over the titles. They're playing around pretending to have put anthrax in his sandwich or something, and there's this Russian scientist who's there who once the guys in tactical suits break into the lab, lockdown happens, everyone panics, but then he gets a phone call saying that these people are coming in and that they're not going to kill him. He just needs to give them access to whatever it is that they want. He agrees because clearly he's a coward. And basically this thing is called Heracles. It's a bioweapon which contain nanobots and they're coded to an individual's DNA, meaning that they can destroy people with similar DNA. So effectively, it's, if you get injected with this thing or it enters your system in any way, you are in danger. But also, if you're connected, if you touch your family members, then they are also at risk of, at any point when you become a threat, you could all be eliminated. But it's harmless to other people because it's only coded to this one particular person's DNA structure. So they the MI6 find out about this because it's actually an MI6 laboratory. So they find out that the Heracles weapon has been taken, and there's only one man for the job because he's deep undercover, in that he doesn't really work for MI6 anymore. So they send out 007 in actual fact to track him down. 007 in this case being played by Lashana Lynch, who some might remember from Captain Marvel. In Jamaica, James Bond is contacted by Felix Leiter, who is played obviously by Jeffrey Wright, and his colleague Logan Ash, who is this kind of permanently smiling, seems to be in awe of Bond, and seems to be at any point able to blow their cover because he's just acting a bit suspiciously. They try to recruit Bond to help them find this Russian scientist. Bond initially declines, but then Nomi, who is 007, passes him by, manages to cut the brake lines or something in the engine of the car that Bond is using, and offers to give him a lift back to his home. No seduction at all, which is a change from how things usually are in Bond films. She just flat out tells him about the Heracles thing and the theft and the fact that there's a Russian scientist out there with this thing, and that Spectre are after the scientist, but they need to get him first and get the weapon back. So Bond agrees to help, but he goes with Leiter instead rather than 007. So from Jamaica, Bond goes to Cuba and meets Paloma, who is played by his Knives Out co-star. What's her name? I can't remember. But she's brilliant. She's kind of a really green new CIA agent working for the CIA. And she is in an absolutely stunning dress, but she can kick ass like the best of them. Again, kind of rebuffing any kind of advance from Bond, and knocking back drinks to kind of calm her nerves, but she absolutely kicks ass in this. They infiltrate a kind of a meeting of Spectre, which is for Blofeld's birthday, even though Blofeld is in prison, like a high security, almost like Arkham Asylum style level security facility back in the UK. Belmarsh, in fact. So there's the guy who was on the motorbike with the bionic eye is in the room. There's a whole bunch of other people that we don't know, but clearly everyone in there is Spectre. The guy with the bionic eye brings in a small pillow with his eye perched on it. And then you hear Blofeld's voice thanking everyone for being there, to celebrate his birthday, unveiling a plan that Spectre will, rise to, bring down the world's governments and all that kind of thing. And then he spots James Bond in the crowd, because James Bond is like, well, how the fuck can he be even communicating from the inside of Belmarsh? Like that doesn't make any sense at all. So Bond is spotted. Blofeld points it out. Big spotlights on Bond. Everyone backs away. Then a mist starts being poured into the room, and that is the Heracles bioweapon, which is supposed to have been coded to Bond's DNA. However, something has happened where a USB has been switched over by Paloma, the CIA agent, which has the DNA records of virtually all the Spectre agents. So the once the mist hits people in the party, they'll start to blister up and die, leaving Bond completely unharmed. But virtually everyone, that means that virtually all of Spectre are now dead, which is, convenient, I suppose. However, there is a big fight that ensues, lots of gun battles, lots of kicking ass. As I said, Paloma more than outmatches Bond in the fighting area, and 007 also joins in. Nomi grabs the Russian scientist and is involved in a big firefight in which Bond manages to just kind of breeze in. I say breeze in. Paloma actually knocks out the balcony that they're standing on, which causes the Russian scientist to fall to the ground, and Bond and Paloma drag him away, or drive him away. So yes, they rendezvous with Leiter and Ash, and they put the Russian scientist. They take the Russian scientist with them onto a boat in the middle of the ocean. Then it turns out that Ash, because he's acting so weirdly, is actually a double agent working for someone called Safin. He kills Leiter. Like, this is the first big name character to get killed. Like, Felix has been in, I think, all of the Daniel Craig Bonds as Felix. And this was sad. He was shot and left for dead while Ash breaks out of the boat and then sets it to sink. Bond tries in vain to free his friend while allowing Ash to escape with the Russian scientist. Unfortunately he can't do it. He's already fatally wounded. Felix tells Bond to get out after Ash, and that's that for Felix Leiter. But it's really sad. I like that character a lot, and I really like Jeffrey Wright as well. He's a great actor. But yeah, that's the first time at which you're like, oh right, okay, they're killing characters in this, are they? So back in London, Bond has come back to London now. Meets with Moneypenny and Q, and agrees to go to Belmarsh to talk to Blofeld, because he tells them all about this party, and what went on there. Just to try and find out where this Russian scientist could possibly have been taken by this Ash fella. However, they also need a psychologist there, because Blofeld only talks to one person, and that is Madeleine. However, Madeleine has been visited by Safin. Now, his name is Lucifer Safin, so it might as well be Lucifer Satan, which is probably one of the worst villain names ever. Because of the way that it's pronounced, it's basically Lucifer Satan. He is a scarred man due to some sort of toxin event that happened in his past. He basically goes there to inject Madeleine with the nanobot Heracles weapon to kill Blofeld. But obviously she'd need to have contact with him, and she's not overly keen on doing that, obviously. But she agrees to do it anyway, because he effectively threatens her and her daughter's life. So it's a bit frosty when Bond and Madeleine meet in the corridor just before going in to confront probably the most devious criminal mastermind on the planet, who will obviously clearly know everything about them. Blofeld confesses that he staged the explosion at the tomb in Italy to make it out as if Madeleine had betrayed him. By this point, Blofeld has already freaked Madeleine out completely and she's left the room. So, yeah, getting Bond on his own and telling him it wasn't her, it was me, and I did that to kind of tear you apart from the one person that you loved, that you found love again after Vesper. That didn't go over well. So Bond then lunges at Blofeld. And because Blofeld obviously is on the Spectre DNA database, Bond has been infected with nanobots because he was in the mist. And now Blofeld is dead. Complete accident, but it rather messes things up for MI6 and also for trying to find where this Russian agent is, because he doesn't know, because Blofeld didn't tell him. This is not great. So Bond decides instead to track down Madeleine, and it turns out she's at that house in Norway, it turns out, where the snow was, where her mother was killed. She still lives there. It's not snowy anymore. He approaches in the same way that Safin did at the very beginning of the movie, except it's not snowy. It's an interesting parallel, I suppose. Is he there to kill her in the same way that Safin was? He learns that Madeleine has a 5-year-old daughter, Matilda, who she claims is not his, despite the fact that this little girl has got blonde hair and blue eyes, the same eyes as his. So they say. But then Madeleine is blonde, so, it's not entirely out of the question. Then Madeleine tells Bond about the Safin attempt. And it turns out that Safin's was working on Blofeld's orders, even all the way back then. However, Safin is basically on a bit of a rampage to destroy Spectre, which he's basically done. Or has it? No, now Safin is kind of like the head of Spectre, except I don't think he had a particularly great kind of outlook on the whole Spectre organisation anyway. But him and Ash basically are now in league with each other. They're basically the head of what would be Spectre. Ash manages to. This is an interesting kind of thing. I can't remember. I think. Oh no, wait. Somehow they're found out. It's found out by Safin and Ash that Bond and Madeleine are at this house. I can't quite remember whether it was a tracking device or something. A car chase ensues where Bond is driving Madeleine and her daughter into the woods to escape these 4x4s that are coming after them. He takes out a few of them, then kind of off-road buggies and dirt bikes and things join the chase, and finally a helicopter. He realised that he can't really outrun these guys. He's in the middle of the forest. He finds a little abandoned shack to kind of hide the women in. And then goes on a kind of Jurassic Park / Silent Hill style. There's a lot of fog and mist in this wood. And he's trying to lure them away with gunfire. He takes out a few people, but then is eventually found by Ash. Ash manages to track him down somehow by following the firing bullets, I suppose. But Bond still manages to crash the car that Ash is in. The car rolls over. Ash has been thrown out, and the car is bearing down on him. It's only being stopped by a rather flimsy tree. So Bond decides to get the information out of Ash before he dies. He could have saved Ash, I guess, but why would you do that? You just let the car fall on the guy and crush him between the car and a rock. He gets all the kind of all the information out of Ash as to where they are. But Safin has found the little hut where Madeline and Matilda are and takes them away in a helicopter. So again, Bond goes back to MI6 and M reinstates Bond as 007, which seems to put Nomi out a little bit. Obviously, that's her call sign. We don't hear what her second call sign is, but she's not happy. But they have to go and infiltrate the headquarters in a missile base, which has been converted into a bioweapon making factory on an island between Japan and Russia. Which they found out through Ash, obviously. So the Russian scientist is mass producing this Heracles technology, so that essentially Safin can kind of pump it out into the water supply, and then is able to kill whoever he wants based on genetics, essentially. So this is a guy who's essentially causing or could potentially cause a kind of Holocaust style, I don't like this particular type of person, so therefore all that particular type of person are going to die. And there are some interesting lines later on about that. So Q enables them to go on this mission without really M's involvement, but they eventually get a ride on a big kind of military Hercules style aeroplane. They get shoved out the back in some strange gravity engined drone, which I didn't really catch how the hell that was supposed to work, which also turns into a submarine. So yeah, Bond and Nomi manage to infiltrate through an old disused submarine loading area. There's loads of those in Bond, aren't there? Although this one doesn't have tons of guards in, so it was easier to get in. They kill loads of Safin's men on the way up to the main kind of, what would you call it, production office overlooking this big lake where loads of people are in biochemical suits so that they don't get infected by the nanobot water that they're kind of having to stir for some reason. They get into the office and essentially Safin finds out they're there. I mean, there's cameras all over the place. He's watching all the time. And Bond agrees to meet Safin for, but bluffs that they have got enough explosives with them to take down the entire island, which is a lie, but, they don't know that. So Bond goes to meet Safin while Nomi stays in the office with the Russian scientist, making sure that he can't be getting up to no good. Bond meets with Safin and essentially kind of they have a conversation. Safin has got Matilda, and he tells Bond that Matilda is Bond's daughter, which obviously throws another level of jeopardy on top of this situation. Madeline is not there. She's being held somewhere else. However, she manages to escape. Bond then attempts to grab Matilda, but she is then, I think, Safin opens a trapdoor which takes him and the girl out of the room, because he's been made aware that Madeline, why do they call each other such similar names? Madeline has escaped. So he exits the room through a trapdoor. Bond doesn't quite manage to get to the girl. All hell breaks loose. The Nomi then has to try and they have to try and rendezvous. They have to try and now work together, her and Bond, from opposite ends of the island, to find Madeline and Matilda, to then get out while not being killed. This is where the language around ethnic cleansing comes in, where the Russian scientist basically says to Nomi, something along the lines of wanting to kill a load of your type of people. She then quite quickly and swiftly dispatches of him by kicking him down into the nanobot lake below, which freaks out all the people in the hazmat suits, and they all disperse. Her and Bond are taking out loads of people. He finds Madeline, but there's no Matilda. Matilda has been released by Safin, and then is just hidden somewhere, and then all of a sudden she's in the room with Bond and Madeline. It's all a bit contrived. But Safin effectively, he's got his nanobot thing that he's ready to disperse anyway, and he's quite happy to let the girl go at this point. The reason that there's quite a lot of rushing around at this point is that MI6 has been told that it, because a bunch of other countries' militaries are wondering why the hell there's a British warship in the area, which is there effectively to blow up the island once Bond manages to put a tracker on exactly where they need to be sending these Exocet missiles or whatever they are. So he's getting kind of, asked difficult questions about why there's a warship in waters where there shouldn't be a warship. He needs Bond to place the tracker, or the target, so that the missiles can be fired, and he can then explain why the ship is there to all concerned. But to do that, obviously this base is an ex-missile base, so it's very heavily fortified. So the only way to do this is to open the blast doors, where the old atomic missiles used to be stored, because there's no other way. It's impenetrable otherwise. So Bond then has to leave. He packs Madeline and Matilda off into into a small boat. Why they don't use the submersible flying vehicle, I'm not entirely sure, but they use a little motorboat, and they get taken to safety on a neighbouring island while he goes to find the mechanism to open the doors, and then he has to escape the island himself, which he's got loads of time to do. However, on his way up, Safin ambushes Bond in his little he's got these weird kind of Japanese gardens where he only grows poisonous plants. This is to make the kind of bioweapons and various other things, and kind of reveals his grand plan, as all great James Bond villains do. So he shot Bond in the leg, I believe. Bond's obviously not having any of it. He hears out Safin's grand plan and then actually just shoots him dead. It's one of the least kind of satisfying Bond final fights I think there has been, which is a bit of a shame, really, because this is the second time, sorry, that they've really been in the same space together. So yeah, that was a little bit kind of. I thought that the Safin character was actually quite weak. There was nothing particularly stand out about the character. The plan is a little bit overblown. Yeah, I would have preferred more Blofeld, I think, but hey, you can't have everything. So he's killed Safin. He then goes up to the control rooms and on the way gets into a big kind of firefight and fist fight, in fact, in the kind of stairwell going up to the main control room, which is quite brutal, actually. There's a lot of quite scrunchy action going on. And yeah, not brilliant. He's beaten shitless, basically, but he makes it to the top. He opens the silo doors, and he's about to go on his way when, after a number of minutes, they begin to close again. So it becomes obvious that there's no way to hold these doors open. They're on a timer to close automatically again, so he has to stay there. And it's at this point that you think, like, well, Bond can get out of anything. Like, he had something like 8 minutes to get this done and get off the island. He had loads of time left. He was easily going to do it. But then all of a sudden, there's these automatic doors. And, yeah, you realise that he's going to have to stay there to keep the doors open while the missiles come in. And it's at this point that I started feeling like he's not going to make it out of this. Like, there is no way out for this character, and they've killed off Felix, and they've killed off Blofeld, and they've killed off the other bad guy. There's basically no more Spectre because everyone has died. So is there anyone left for Bond to fight anymore? And then comes this quite moving scene where, over the walkie-talkies, he's talking to Madeline. Even if he could get off the island, he's been infected with the nanobots, and so therefore, even if he got away, Madeline and Matilda would not be safe because he couldn't ever touch them. They tell each other they love each other, and he tells her to move on with her life without him. This is where Madeline actually confirms that Matilda is his daughter. There's a bit actually where just before they leave the island, Bond meets up with Nomi, and he almost but doesn't quite say this is my family. He almost says it, and I think he might even like mouth it, but doesn't actually speak the words. And knowing Bond's backstory as an orphan and all the rest of that, which you kind of found out in Skyfall, which has always been in the character's biography anyway. But yeah, this part is particularly moving, I think. And then, for a minute or so, you just watch these missiles coming in to hit the island, and you stay on Bond's face as the missiles hit the ground. And that's it. And that's the end of Bond. Back in MI6, M, Moneypenny, Nomi, Q, and Tanner. The main kind of MI6 bods that you've seen throughout the series so far all take a drink in his memory, and Madeline returns to, I think it's the family home, and kind of tells Matilda about her father, kind of is telling her all about his life and who he was, and that's the end of the film. So yeah, it's a bold move to kill off a James Bond. I don't believe that's ever been done before. Like, I'm not au fait with all of the the kind of classic Bonds, if you like. But I'm pretty sure they didn't, kill off Bond before. So this is new. I think it's absolutely fitting for the arc of this character, bearing in mind that Daniel Craig, after Spectre, was saying all sorts of things that he would never want to play this character again. He's a chauvinist pig and an alcoholic and all this kind of stuff. He wasn't happy playing the character. However, Spectre wasn't like the greatest of endings to go out on. People were a bit unhappy about the ending of that film. And I just think that this really does tie a bow on the end of this. But the weirdest thing is that right after the credits, it still says, like at the end of every James Bond movie, James Bond will return. And I don't know what that means. Because obviously, you know, they reboot this character every couple of decades, and it's a brand new actor, brand new stories and stuff. But the Daniel Craig Bond is the first Bond to have a real kind of overarching narrative. Like, each of these films that he's been in has carried on one story. You know, this story of this kind of broken man who, you know, falls in love with someone, loses her, and then spends 3 films trying to punish the people responsible for her death, only to find love somewhere else and then have that taken away from him as well. I think they work really well as a kind of series of films, and it's the first time that Bond has really had this over more than 2 films. But yeah, so they're going to have to completely revamp it. Like, we've had Judi Dench's M through the Pierce Brosnan run into the Daniel Craig run, which kind of implied a history there. Obviously, Desmond Llewellyn's Q went through a bunch of Bonds right into the Pierce Brosnan era from the Connery era, I think. So that implies that the character, I mean, you know, I'm sure I've had this conversation before, probably even on this podcast, that James Bond could well be a call sign in the same way that 007 is a call sign. But why not say 007 will be back at the end of this? Because there was, in fact, another 007 in this film anyway. But then maybe they're retiring 007 after Daniel Craig, but then you can't have a James Bond without being a 007. It's throwing up a lot of interesting questions. However, that aside, and the fact that this film is nearly 3 hours long, it's 2 3/4 hours long, it's perfectly fitting as the final James Bond film for Daniel Craig. As I say, the main villain in it, Lucifer Satan, not the best of the Bond villains, I don't think. Possibly a plan that's even kind of the least believable. When you look back to Casino Royale, it was so grounded. I mean, literally, Le Chiffre was laundering money and carrying out fraud, basically, with the crimes that were going on there. And then you get to, like, being able to wipe out entire swathes of the human race with the press of a button. The Bond films have gone from that kind of gritty Bourne, like, copies, if you like the new reboot was to kind of ground it in these kind of gritty realities that you were seeing in the Bourne franchise, for example. And after a couple of films of doing that kind of thing, they started to get into, you know, all the gadgets again, and the quips, and the slightly ridiculous plots and all that. And that's fine, because that's actually what James Bond is. But yeah, I think this apart from that kind of weak villain role, I think everything else, it's not really about the villain. That's the thing. This film is about Bond, and it's about Madeline, and it's about him having a family that he never knew he had, but he can't enjoy that because he is who he is. And the only redemption, I guess, is death. So, yeah, it's a different type of James Bond movie, that's for sure. And I don't know what the bits that were written, which parts were written by Phoebe Waller-Bridge, who was kind of brought in to kind of punch up the less chauvinistic side of the character, and add scenes probably to do with the female characters, I would imagine. But it didn't seem that these characters were written, it didn't seem like a film that was written by committee. I just thought it was brilliant. And I just think, you could have probably lost that scene in Cuba with the big party, but because who needed to see all the Spectre agents killed? It didn't really add a lot. But it was good. It was good fun. And this is the thing, like, it's a long film and it feels long because there are places where it slows right down. But actually what it does is give you a really, really good view of the character and the and his role and his flaws and his paranoia, which leads to all sorts of complications. And in a way, it's kind of like a Spider-Man film. Like, all the problems that crop up that cause obstacles for him are kind of his own making. And in the end, sacrifice is the only thing that he can do to save not just his family, but the world. And I think, this run of films has been absolutely hands down the best run of James Bonds there has ever been. Daniel Craig is the best Bond there has ever been, and this is the best send-off he could have hoped for, I think. So I'm really glad that he came back to do it. I'm glad that it took as long as it did. I'm really glad that the spoilers were kept. And I'm really glad to have watched them all, and I will continue to watch them, I think, because I think that they're just brilliant films. I know Quantum of Solace gets a bit of stick, and so does Skyfall and Spectre as well, but actually they're just enjoyable. They seem to me less far-fetched than some of the early Bonds. Although being fairly far-fetched in themselves, there's just, I don't know, there's something really grounded about Craig's performance and the world in which he operates. And so I think in as I keep saying, in conclusion, it's a great way to end the series. And I hope that everyone goes to see it. Everyone has seen it, because it's worth your time for sure. Let me know what you think. Give us an email. Get in touch on Patreon, obviously. I'll try and keep a closer eye on that once these episodes go out. And then if you're listening to this on the main feed, once the DVD and the Blu-ray is out, let me know what you think. If you didn't see it in the cinema, how did you find it watching at home? Sometimes these things don't carry over onto the small screen, but James Bond is James Bond. These films will continue to be played until the end of time. on bank holidays and on consecutive Sundays. It seems ITV, for example, here in the UK, are always playing a Bond film almost every Sunday anyway. So let me know where you think it ranks in the all-time list. Who's your favourite Bond? Which is your favourite film? Who's your favourite villain? All that kind of thing. What's your favourite gadget? Which is your favourite car? Let me know. Get in touch and we can have a chat about it. It'll be interesting to hear what you think. Until next time. Talk to you soon. Bye.